Hello everyone, my name is Rachel and welcome back to another true crime video. So the case that I have for you all today is one that is a little bit crazy. It definitely uncovered some pretty interesting secrets about this family that kind of left me in awe. So without any further delay, let's just get into the case today. Today, we are going to be discussing the case of Kristine Fitzhugh. Kristine Fitzhugh married her husband, Kenneth Fitzhugh, in 1966. Together, they had two children, Justin and John, and they lived for 18 years in a nice home in Palo Alto, California. Kristine worked part-time as a music teacher at the Palo Alto School District, and she volunteered for various community organizations. Kenneth was self-employed as a real estate consultant where he ran his business out of their home. In addition to that, he did work as a paralegal part-time. Those who knew the family said that they seemed to have this picture-perfect life. They drove nice cars, had a very well-kept house in a nice neighborhood, and Kenneth was known around the neighborhood for his business with real estate. Kristine made sure to stay in shape by working out, and those around her said that she always looked amazing, even when she was working out. Her hair, makeup, and clothing were always on point. Kristine was known as a dependable wife, and Kenneth was known as being charming, friendly, and charismatic. Neighbors would frequently ask Kenneth for help with programming their computers, and he would always do what he could to help them. The family often went on outings such as camping trips, and Kenneth was always the one that the family could count on to pitch the tent, fill the inflatable boat, and prep their ATVs. Life for the family seemed almost picture perfect. The morning of May 5th, 2000 started as any day would. Kristine got up for work at around 6 a.m. She read the newspaper and drank some coffee like she always did. Kristine and Kenneth went for their morning jog at around 7 a.m., returning back home by 7:45 a.m. They changed, took showers, and went on with their days. Kristine left the house at around 10 a.m. in her silver BMW to teach her music class at the elementary school, which started at 10:20 a.m. Then Kenneth left the house at 11 a.m. He drove to a vacated lot and walked around the lot for about an hour. He was trying to determine if the lot was suitable for a construction project that a client wanted to complete on that lot. He didn't see or talk to anybody while at that lot. Kristine taught at the school, and during her lunch break, she stopped at Pete's coffee shop in Palo Alto sometime before noon, where she got 2 muffins and a coffee. However, that same afternoon, just after 12 p.m., a FedEx employee tried to deliver a package to the Fitzhugh house, but nobody answered the door. Then, just after 1 p.m., the school called Kenneth to notify him that Kristine had not shown up for class that she was scheduled to teach at 12:50 p.m. that same day. Now, Kenneth later in the day had an appointment at 1:30 p.m. to pick up 2 friends and run some errands in Palo Alto. So, he was with the 2 friends when he got the call. At first, he suggested to the coworker that she try Kristine's new cell number, and she did, but the coworker still could not get a hold of Kristine. So Kenneth then tried calling Kristine's cell phone himself, and she didn't answer. So he tried the home phone as well, but again, she was not answering any of his calls. So he and the 2 friends immediately dropped what they were doing and they went to the house to go check in on Kristine. Right away when they got to the house, they noticed that Kristine's car was still parked in the driveway and the front door was left open. So Kenneth went inside the house alone while the 2 friends waited in the car. They watched as Kenneth went upstairs in the home yelling out Kristine's name. Then he went on the first floor to look for her. And while he was on the first floor, Kenneth noticed that the door to the basement was open. So he looked down the stairs and into the basement. Immediately after, he ran out to the car where the 2 women were waiting, and he told them that he needed help because Kristine was injured. Both women went inside the home, but only one of them went into the basement to look at what happened. The friend described that Kristine was laying at the base of the stairs with her head on the landing and her legs extending up the stairs, with her head lying right next to a large brass ship bell. Under her body, there were several pieces of clothing in a dry cleaning bag, as well as school papers under her body, and then there were still some items clutched in her hands. Then they found that her shoe was located several stairs above. So, right away, the other woman called 911 to report that their friend had been injured in the home. While 911 was on the way, Kenneth and the friend moved Kristine's body so that she was laying flat on the ground in the basement, and the friend began CPR, and her and Kenneth switched off with CPR until help arrived, which was at 1:40 p.m. When EMTs arrived, they attempted to resuscitate Kristine, but unfortunately, she had already been dead at the scene. When EMTs questioned Kenneth, he initially told them that she must have slipped and fell and hit her head while carrying some dry cleaning down the stairs. After this, of course, Kenneth and the two friends were taken into the police station for further questioning. While waiting, Kenneth called several friends and family members to inform them that Kristine had died because she slipped and fell down the stairs. When examining her body at the scene, investigators said that there was a pool of blood, but it was mostly located around her head. On the ground next to her head, like I said, there was a large, heavy brass bell. By that time, the bell had been moved away from where it originally was because CPR was being attempted. But according to the friend, the bell was right next to Kristine's head when they originally found her. Investigators then found that in the kitchen, she left her keys, purse, and her uneaten muffin and a water bottle on the dining room table. Then there was a half-eaten muffin, a half-drank coffee, a notebook, school papers, and a marker on the kitchen table. So, to investigators, it looked like she was sitting at the table immediately before her death. So it looked like she came in, put some of her items on the dining room table, and then took the things that she was working on and the muffin that she was eating and the coffee that she was drinking to the table in the kitchen. Then, while at the station, investigators asked Kenneth to explain to them what he did that day in great detail. So, he told them the timeline that I mentioned earlier about how they woke up, the two went on their run, and then Christina went and taught at the school, while Kenneth left the house and went to that vacant lot to determine if it was good for his client. However, Kenneth wasn't able to tell police officers any specifics about what he did at the lot. He couldn't tell the officer what kind of project his client was going to build on that land. He couldn't describe the building layout. He couldn't even describe the layout of the vacant lot and where things were supposed to go. Those are all obviously things that you'd need to know about the building that the client wants to build if you're determining if they're going to be able to use that land. And like I said, he didn't see or talk to anybody while he was there, so he couldn't really have anybody confirm, and he couldn't totally explain what he was doing on that lot for that entire hour to begin with. Then police officers asked Kenneth if they could have his permission to search the home to see if anything had been stolen. Of course, they first wanted to see if she had been murdered and if this was a robbery that had gone wrong. Kenneth agreed, and he filled out the entire form that was needed for consent to search the house, but he then would not sign it. Kenneth said that after filling out the form, he changed his mind. So the officer left the room, gave him a little bit of time to think about it, and when he returned, Kenneth changed his mind once again and said that police could search the home as long as Kenneth could be there with them. Police agreed, and Kenneth signed the form. As officers and Kenneth were arriving back at the home, another officer notified this original officer that they had found a pair of bloody running shoes and a bloody paper towel inside of Kenneth's car. So this officer asked Kenneth if he could show him where his running shoes were supposed to be located, and he did. Kenneth brought the officer to his closet where the running shoes were normally kept, but instead he showed the officer that there was an empty space in a row of shoes that were lined up on the closet floor. Kenneth said that the shoes should have been in that empty space, and he didn't know why the shoes weren't there. So the officer told him that the shoes were actually found in his car and showed him a picture of them. He could not explain why they were in the car or why they had blood on them. He also could not explain the bloody paper towel. Police also noted that there was no sign of forced entry into the home, and they found no evidence that anything from the home had been stolen. So, this did not appear to be a robbery or anything like that. It didn't appear that anybody had broken into the home either. So, either she let the person in willingly because she knew them, or it was someone who was already in the home. After that, Kenneth left the house because he was picking up his son from the airport. His son at the time was in college, so he was flying back as soon as he heard about what happened to his mother. Several hours later, the officer had Kenneth come back into the station for another interview. In this interview, Kenneth did come up with an explanation for why Kristine's blood may have been on his running shoes. He said that maybe it got there after she had cut her hand while gardening about a week or two beforehand. He said that when she cut herself while gardening, he went over to help her and he applied pressure on her wound, so that is probably how the blood got on his shoes. But again, he still couldn't explain why the shoes were in the car and not in his closet where he said they would be. Then, for the paper towel, he said that he may have cleaned himself off after giving his wife CPR that day, and then after that, he went to go check on his dogs, which were still in the car at that time. He said that while checking in on the dogs, that may have been when he threw the towel in the car without even realizing it. After this, of course, Kristine's body was sent off to the medical examiner for an autopsy. After his examination, the forensic pathologist found some very interesting injuries on Kristine. They found 3 impact wounds on the top of her head and then 3 more impact wounds to the back of her head. These wounds indicated that she had been struck with some sort of blunt object from behind. Next, they found that there was a puncture wound right behind Kristine's right ear that extended all the way through her skull and into her brain, which indicated that the blunt object struck her with enough force to fracture her skull. Then they found injuries to her neck indicative of being strangled. Then they found injuries to her face, including 2 black eyes, which told the pathologist that she had been punched or slapped multiple times to her eyes, mouth, and face. They also found defensive wounds to her left pinky finger, which was consistent with her putting up her hand in an attempt to block a blow. The medical examiners determined that her cause of death was the result of head wounds that she had sustained, with manual strangulation as a contributing factor. The pathologist then laid out the situation in which they believe Kristine died. They said that she was struck in the head multiple times, where Kristine tried to fight off her attacker, at least briefly. Then they said that the attacker grabbed her by her neck and strangled her with one hand, while they were punching her and hitting her with the other hand. They believe that her injuries are not at all consistent with the fall down the stairs. In fact, they believe that she was already dead before she was moved to the basement. So, she was attacked and murdered somewhere else in the house before someone moved her to where she would later be found to make it look like a fall. Then, when searching the house and collecting evidence, investigators found that there were small spatters of blood in different areas around the kitchen. Some of the blood was under objects, and in total, investigators found over 70 spots of blood all over that kitchen, and some more blood within the laundry room. It was stated that this blood spatter pattern was consistent with Kristine being hit with an object, and then blood being cast off of the object when they were bringing it back up to go back down. So that is how the blood spatter got kind of all over the kitchen and into the laundry room. Going off of this evidence, investigators decided to conduct a luminol test all over the house. They found evidence of blood located on the kitchen chair next to that half-eaten muffin and by Kristine's papers that she was grading when she was sitting at the kitchen table. They found blood on the kitchen walls and then a big area of blood on the kitchen floor. Then there was a path of blood that led from the kitchen to the top of the stairs, which led into the basement, and then there was a pool of blood at the top of the basement stairs. Then they found shoe prints in the blood, which they said looked to be consistent with Kenneth's running shoes. Then they found some evidence that somebody had attempted to clean up the blood using a cloth. Using this evidence, police obtained a search warrant to go ahead and search Kenneth's car, which was a Chevy Suburban. In the car, they found a dress shirt stuffed under the front seat of the car, and on that shirt, they found a large red round stain that appeared to be blood on the front. Of course, this shirt was consistent with the other shirts that they found in Kenneth's closet, so they can reasonably assume that this shirt did belong to Kenneth. Then, using DNA testing, investigators were able to officially confirm that the blood in the kitchen, the blood on the shirt, and the blood on Kenneth's running shoes, they were all a match to Kristine's blood. So of course, Kenneth was asked if he was able to provide an alibi for the time between 11 a.m. and 1:41 a.m., which is between the times that Kristine was last seen teaching her class and stopping for coffee and muffins to when police arrived. As we know, Kenneth did pick up the two friends just after 1 p.m. But when he said that he left the house at 11 a.m. and was at that vacant lot for an hour, there is absolutely nobody that can confirm this alibi. No one saw him between 11 and 1. Nobody talked to him that entire time. They did find one woman who worked in a building adjacent to the vacant lot that Kenneth said that he was looking at. The woman said that her and Kenneth had an ongoing working relationship, and they would often communicate back and forth about permits and what was going on with said land at any given time. She said that anytime he visited the lot, he would talk to her. She said that if he visited that lot and didn't talk to her, it would have been very strange. So she did say that on the day of May 5th, when he said that he visited that empty lot, she did not see him there, nor did she talk to him. Then, as we remember from before, when Kenneth got the call from the coworker that she couldn't get a hold of Kristine, Kenneth said that he also tried to call her. But phone records from the home phone and Kristine's phone showed that he did not try to contact Kristine at any time that day. Of course, with all of this, police felt that they had enough evidence to say that Kenneth was the one responsible for the murder of his wife. By the evening of May 19th, 2000, 56-year-old Kenneth Fitzhugh was arrested and charged with the second-degree murder of his wife, 53-year-old Kristine. The trial for murder started in late July of 2001. When it comes to murder, especially of your significant other, you have to ask why. You have to ponder what could cause someone to murder their loving wife of over 30 years. Well, the prosecution in this case pointed out a few different reasons for why Kenneth may have wanted his wife dead. Like I said earlier, the family was known to have a lifestyle that anybody on the outside could be envious of. They lived in a $2 million home, they had good jobs, they drove nice cars, and all of that. But investigators found out that in the months before Kristine's death, Kenneth found himself in some serious financial trouble. It turned out that they had almost no money in liquid assets despite their flashy lifestyle. They had less than $20,000 in liquid assets despite the fact that the family spent that much almost monthly. It turned out that just 4 days before Kristine's death, Kenneth signed a loan application that stated his monthly income was $16,500, even though his tax statement that year before showed that he made around $30,000 that entire year. In that loan, he put up the home as collateral. They also found multiple checks that previous year that had bounced, and he fell behind on tax payments. Now, Kenneth explained that he would be making $16,500 had he worked full-time and charged his normal hourly rate, but he didn't work full-time that year because he had other obligations. Although I don't know why he was able to lie about that, because clearly he wasn't actually making that much, even if he was supposed to make that much. But nonetheless, prosecutors told the jury that within the 2 years before Kristine's death, the family's 3 investment accounts plunged from almost $400,000 in investments in 1998 to only $11,000 in May of 2000. For people that are within 10 years of retirement, that is concerningly low. That is not even close to enough money to retire on. So the prosecution brought forward how Kenneth would have benefited financially from his wife's death. Per her death, he would stand to get the majority of Kristine's estate, which included $20,000 in personal property, such as furniture, jewelry, etc., and then $870,000 in real estate, which was described as Kristine's share of the $2 million home that they lived in. Then he would receive $96,000 in life insurance money. But money isn't the only reason that Kenneth may have wanted Kristine dead. At the trial, the prosecution dropped a bit of a bombshell of information, and that was that Kristine's oldest son, Justin, actually was not the biological son of Kenneth. He had a different father. So going back to the 1970s, it turned out that Kristine had an affair with the family's lawyer / family friend, Robert Brown. Kristine met Robert when she was obviously married to Kenneth, but before she had any children. The two started off as occasionally getting dinner together, but that turned out to turn into a habit, and soon they were spending weeknights and weekends together. Kristine and Robert had vacations together, and they even invested in business ventures together. They purchased boats, real estate, and stocks together. But it turned out that Robert was suffering from a bit of a drug problem. According to documents, both Kristine and Kenneth, who of course did not know about the affair, wanted to help out their friend with his issue. So they lent him $19,000 to check himself into rehab. He did his rehab, but by 1995, they found out that Robert was still using, so the family cut ties with him. At that point, Robert had been disbarred from his law license and he moved to Placerville. But during the time that the two were having their secret affair, Kristine became pregnant with Justin. Now, Robert said that he never actually knew for sure if Justin was his biological son, but he said that he always knew in his heart that Justin was his. Robert even put Justin in his will, listing him as my son Justin, and Kristine calling her the mother of Justin. But Robert said that even though he would go with the whole family on vacations and spend time with all of them, neither he nor Kristine ever told Kenneth about the affair. They said again that the whole time the family and him had been friends, they always tried to help him get off of drugs. During the trial, Justin actually took the stand to talk about his experience with all of this. He was away at college at the time that all of this happened. He talked about how he learned about his mother's death that one day while talking on the phone with his dad. Kenneth told Justin that there had been a terrible accident and that his mother was dead. On the stand, Justin said that he never knew or even had the smallest suspicion that Kenneth was not his biological father. He said that he did notice, though, that he remembered having a special connection with Robert when he was growing up. He said that he did notice that he had a little bit more of a close bond with Robert than his younger brother John, but he never really made the connection. He said that growing up, he didn't get any special treatment from Kristine, Robert, or Kenneth, though. Justin said that he remembered the day that him and his mom cut off contact with Robert. He said that the two of them went to go visit him, but they found him heavily under the influence of drugs to the point that he was hallucinating. They ended up having to call an ambulance for him, and after that, they stopped contact. But by December of 1999, Robert sent the family a postcard saying that he moved, gave them his new phone number, and told them the good news that he was now clean for good. So, after getting that postcard, 5 months before Kristine was murdered, she contacted Robert and told him that after Justin finished college, she planned to reveal to Justin who his true biological father was. That would have been on May 20th, 2000. So, only 2 weeks before she allegedly planned on telling Justin, Kristine was murdered. Of course, the defense tried saying that Robert was making this up, that Kristine didn't actually plan on telling Justin. But he said that through Justin's entire life, they had always talked about it. Kristine had always said that she wanted to tell Justin once he was old enough to understand. Of course, there was a DNA test done, and it came out that Robert really was Justin's biological father. Now, it's not 100% clear whether or not Kenneth knew about Justin's true paternity before this time. Some say that he did know, but it's speculated that she did tell Kenneth in the days before she was murdered. It makes sense that she would admit it to Kenneth before she would tell Justin and everybody else this huge secret. It even turned out that during one of the police interviews early on in the investigation, Kenneth referred to Justin as her son rather than our son. Police caught that and asked him, "Is he not your son?" And he corrected himself and saying, "No, he is our son." But during the trial, Kenneth claimed that he did not know about Robert being Justin's father until he had already been arrested. He said that the whole time he thought Robert was actually gay, and he said that he even thought that Robert was interested in him. So that is why he was always cool with him being around the family and being close with his wife and sons, because he didn't think that there was ever a threat. But either way, I think it's absolutely possible that he found out and attacked and murdered Kristine to prevent her from telling Justin about the paternity. Maybe he wanted to protect his reputation, or maybe he didn't want his relationship with Justin to change. Who really knows? But I do think that it's probably true that for the entirety of their friendship, Kenneth probably did think that Robert might have been gay, because why else would he be cool with, her going to visit him by herself and her spending so much time with him if he thought that there was a possibility that anything was going on. But I do think that either the same day or in the days before Kristine's death, I think that is when he found out. Of course, during the trial, the prosecution talked about all of the inconsistencies with Kenneth's timeline and his lack of alibi. They talked about all of the blood evidence found within the home and the blood evidence found in Kenneth's car. The defense actually claimed that Kristine was murdered by an intruder and that the police had tunnel vision and that they conducted a sloppy investigation and failed to look into other suspects because they were so convinced that Kenneth had to be responsible. Kenneth maintained that he really did think that Kristine had fallen down the stairs when he found her. He said that when he saw the shoes that she was wearing, he had warned her many times in the past not to wear those shoes because he was afraid of her falling. And he said that that's exactly what he thought happened when he found her. So he said that he didn't beat her. It must have been an intruder who put her in that position, who also wanted to make it look like a fall, because that's truly what he thought when he found her. Now, obviously, we know that the autopsy found that this whole idea that she fell down the stairs is impossible. So the defense argued that Kristine was in the basement when she was confronted by an intruder who wanted to rob the home. They said that this intruder was the one who hit Kristine and murdered her. And he probably didn't end up taking anything from the home because he was just afraid of being caught after somebody in the house was just murdered. The defense said that it was because of Kenneth's valiant efforts to save his wife's life that caused him to track blood all throughout the house and get blood all over his clothes and his shoes. Now, when talking about the bloody shirt in particular, Kenneth said that he used the shirt to clean himself up after giving his wife CPR. That's how the blood got on it. When he was asked why he shoved the shirt under the front seat of his car, he said that he was actually saving it for continuous use as a rag now that it was already ruined. This kind of shocked the prosecution, who said, "You were gonna keep this shirt that had blood of your precious wife on it as a rag?" And he said yes. Near the end of the trial, during their closing statements, the defense said, quote, "Either intentionally or through negligence or incompetence, the Palo Alto police let their conclusions lead them to the facts rather than the facts lead them to the conclusions," which we have seen in a lot of cases where they already think that something happened and they'll just see evidence and be like, "Oh, this definitely proves that, what we already thought is true," versus collecting all of the evidence and going down every avenue. But at the end of the trial, the jury of 6 men and 6 women went off for their deliberations. They deliberated for 3 days before they came back with their verdict. They found Kenneth Fitzhugh guilty of the second-degree murder of his wife, Kristine Fitzhugh. The jury believed that he acted without premeditation. They believed that the motive was because he was not the biological father of Justin. Because of that, he was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. It was said that throughout the course of the trial, Kenneth showed absolutely no emotion and no remorse. It seemed that he didn't want to admit any fault in what happened, but he also didn't seem to feel too bad about it either. But after being convicted after spending a little bit less than 12 years in jail, Kenneth was granted compassionate release in February of 2012 because of an undisclosed terminal illness, though I did see in one source that it was because he had Parkinson's disease. This was a very controversial release. A lot of people wanted him to die in prison. They didn't think that he deserved the compassion of dying in a hospital or at home when he ended the life of his wife of over 30 years. She didn't get a compassionate death. She got a horrifying, brutal, vicious beating that caused her to die. But either way, he was released, and he lived in Palo Alto for 8 months before he died on October 27th, 2012 at the age of 69 years old. So that is all I have for today's case. It's definitely a crazy one, and I know a lot of people will have their opinions about all of this and Kristine's affair and all of that. Obviously, the affair should have never happened. Obviously, both Justin and Kenneth should have known a lot earlier because they do deserve to know. They do deserve to know that Robert is the true biological father of Justin, even though Kenneth raised him as his own son his entire life. Obviously, Kristine made mistakes in her life, but obviously she didn't deserve to be murdered over it. I absolutely can put myself in Kenneth's shoes and feel compassion for him after finding out. I'm sure it was devastating. I can't even imagine what that must have felt like. Even just finding out that your partner had an affair, let alone that the child you've been raising your entire life is not your biological son. But there are so many other things that could have happened besides Kenneth murdering Kristine and spending the rest of his own life in jail. This case is overall very sad, and I honestly don't know what Justin is doing now or how he is doing in the aftermath of all of this. I can only hope that he has found ways to heal from this and move on with his life. But either way, that is all I have for today's case, and now I want to hear anything that you guys think about this case in the comments below. If you did like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to go ahead and turn that notification bell to on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure you go ahead and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Both will be linked down below. And if you have absolutely any case suggestions, please make sure to go ahead and fill out the Google form that I have listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.